CBP Social Media Check 2026 5-year scan that can deny your visa. The phone was still in their hand when the officer asked for it. A border inspection that Customs and Border Protection agents had flagged, escalated, and referred to a secondary screening room, all within 20 minutes of landing. A sudden demand for passwords. A bright overhead light in a room with no windows and no exit except the one the officer controlled. A federal agent asking questions that sounded casual, but were backed by 5 years of your digital life already pulled up on a government screen. This didn't unfold over months of surveillance. It unfolded in 45 minutes. 45 minutes that could cancel a visa you waited years to obtain. 45 minutes that could end a green card application before it ever reached a USCIS officer. 45 minutes that could put you on the next flight home, permanently barred from returning. One post here, one comment, one like, one follow from years ago, and you could be on a flight back home tomorrow. What the Department of Homeland Security implemented crossed a line that civil liberties organizations, immigration attorneys, and digital rights advocates had warned about for years. And when that line became official policy, Customs and Border Protection did not hesitate. They rolled it out with speed, scope, and a reach into your past that most travelers never imagined was possible. Most people assume their social media is private. They make the same mistake. They think what they posted 3 years ago, in another country, in another language, on a platform they barely use anymore, doesn't follow them to an American port of entry. But today, you're going to understand exactly how wrong that assumption is. For several years now, there had been signals, not from press briefings, not from official DHS announcements, just signals, that the federal government was preparing something far more systematic than the occasional manual social media check at the border. The technology had been building, yes, but also quietly expanding in that approach. The programs followed a pilot, a rollout, almost a quiet normalization, moving from airports handling international arrivals to consulates issuing visas to the digital infrastructure behind every visa application you submit. But what triggered alarm inside immigration legal communities this year was that the scope of the scan suddenly expanded in ways that had not been publicly announced. Immigration attorneys who monitor DHS technology programs recognize the indicators. The expansion of social media handle fields on visa application forms, now mandatory for nearly all applicants. The integration of AI-powered sentiment analysis tools capable of scanning posts in dozens of languages. The expansion of the look-back window from 90 days to 5 full years of online activity. The sudden spike in visa denials citing public safety concerns with no specific post identified to the applicant. And when the government starts using language it won't explain, something sweeping is already underway. Early in 2026, immigration law professionals confirmed what they described as a systematized social media vetting infrastructure, including automated screening capabilities applied to visa applicants and travelers not seen at the scale in the history of U.S. border enforcement. These are tools the government only deploys when signaling something specific. A fundamental reshaping of how immigration risk is assessed. A move away from document verification toward behavioral and ideological screening. Or a long-term effort to build a permanent digital profile on every foreign national who has ever sought entry into the United States. Observers weren't sure which one applied, or whether all three did at once. But one thing was clear. CBP and the State Department were changing their vetting posture and doing so in ways that applicants had no way to prepare for unless someone told them exactly what was happening. And when that happens without public explanation, the people most at risk are the ones going through the process right now, today, without knowing what is being run on their name. The vetting expansion confirmed by immigration professionals this year was not routine. It was not symbolic. It was urgent. Attorney after attorney described the new screening framework as invasive, algorithmically opaque, and most importantly, consequential in ways that applicants cannot appeal because they are never told exactly what the system found. But surveillance only works when the subject doesn't know it's happening. You now know it's happening. So let's go through exactly what CBP and the State Department are scanning, how far back they are looking, what they are flagging, and what you need to do right now to protect yourself. Immigration attorneys and DHS policy analysts confirmed this year that CBP has deployed social media screening tools targeting all categories of visa applicants and international travelers, including tourist visa holders. Student visa applicants, work visa categories, and green card adjustment cases that had recently been updated for what analysts believe was enhanced ideological and security vetting. They acted before most applicants realized the policy had changed. They scanned public posts on Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Telegram. They scanned comments, likes, shares, and group memberships. They targeted content connected to political expression, religious affiliation, associations with foreign nationals on watch lists, and any posts that their algorithms classified as hostile to the United States. This wasn't a keyword search. It was behavioral profiling. And that's what made the warning so urgent for people who thought their old posts were irrelevant. Let me walk you through the mechanics of how this actually works, because understanding the process is the first step to protecting yourself. When you apply for a U.S. visa, you are now required to list your social media handles on the DS-160 application form. This is not optional. This is not a field you can leave blank without consequence. Leaving it blank when you have active accounts is considered a material misrepresentation, which is its own ground for denial and can result in a permanent bar. The handles you provide are then fed into a government database that cross-references your accounts, identifies linked accounts you didn't disclose, and begins pulling publicly available content associated with your digital identity. Here is what most people don't understand. The system doesn't just look at what you submitted. It looks for what you didn't submit. If you have a secondary Instagram account, an old Twitter handle you forgot about, a YouTube channel from 5 years ago, or a TikTok account you made under a nickname, the system is designed to find those too. It cross-references email addresses, phone numbers, profile photos, follower networks, and behavioral patterns to connect digital identities that were never linked by the user. If it finds an account you didn't disclose, one that contains content the algorithm flags, you now have two problems: the content itself, and the fact that you didn't tell them about the account. Now let me be specific about what the algorithm is looking for, because this is the part that affects people who are absolutely certain they've done nothing wrong. The screening system flags several categories of content. The first is direct expressions of hostility toward the United States, statements criticizing U.S. policy, government, or military action in certain contexts. The second is association with designated foreign terrorist organizations or individuals on federal watch lists, even if the association is simply following an account, liking a post, or being in a group chat. The third is content related to specific geopolitical conflicts, particularly posts that the algorithm classifies as supportive of certain foreign governments or movements that the U.S. considers adversarial. The fourth is religious expression in certain contexts, particularly content that the system associates with radicalization pathways, even when the content is mainstream religious practice. The fifth is encrypted or deleted content, not the content itself, but the metadata pattern of deletion, which the system interprets as a potential attempt to conceal activity. Yes, deleting posts before you apply can itself become a flag. That is the trap most people fall into. They hear about social media screening. They go through their accounts and delete everything that feels politically sensitive, religiously observant in ways they worry might be misread, or critical of any government. And that deletion pattern, the sudden removal of years of content shortly before a visa application, is itself a behavioral signal the system is trained to detect. This does not mean you cannot manage your online presence. It means you need to understand the difference between thoughtful, ongoing digital hygiene, which is smart, and a sudden pre-application purge, which creates its own problem. Let me talk about the 5-year look-back window specifically, because this is what makes the 2026 policy fundamentally different from anything CBP has done before. Previous social media vetting operated on shorter, inconsistent windows. Some consulates looked back 90 days. Some looked back 1 year. There was no standardized protocol. In 2026, that changed. The policy now directs screening systems to examine up to 5 years of publicly available social media content. For the average social media user, 5 years is an enormous archive. Think about what you posted 5 years ago. Think about the political climate in your home country 5 years ago. Think about what was happening in the world, the conflicts, the elections, the social movements, and what you may have shared, liked, or commented on in real time as events unfolded. From a country that is no longer where you live and under circumstances that no longer reflect your situation. The algorithm does not have context. It does not know that the post you shared in 2020 was about a conflict in your region that directly affected your family. It does not know that the group you joined in 2021 was a community support network that later had members associated with a designated organization. It does not know that the account you followed in 2019 was popular in your country and later became controversial for reasons you had no involvement in. The algorithm flags. A human officer then decides what to do with the flag. And in a system processing millions of applications, that human review is often brief, often conducted without language expertise in your native tongue, and often results in a denial letter that cites only public safety concerns, without specifying what was found. You cannot appeal what you cannot identify. That is the design. Now let me talk about secondary inspection, because the social media scan doesn't only happen before you arrive. It happens when you land. CBP officers at ports of entry have real-time access to social media screening tools. When your passport is scanned at the border, a profile is generated. That profile can include flagged content from your social media, content that was not sufficient to deny your visa, but was sufficient to place a notation in the system. That notation triggers secondary inspection. In secondary inspection, officers can and do ask for access to your phone. They can ask for your passwords. They can ask you to unlock accounts, scroll through messages, and show them content that is not publicly visible. Legally, you have the right to refuse, but refusal at a port of entry can itself result in denial of entry, even for visa holders. There is no clean answer here. But knowing this moment might come and knowing how to respond calmly, consistently, and without creating new problems is information you need before you board the plane. Here is your action plan, and I want you to treat this as a real protocol, not a suggestion. First, conduct a full audit of every social media account you have ever created, not just the ones you use today, but the ones you used in the last 5 years. List every platform. List every handle. List every email address you used to create accounts. If you find accounts you forgot about, log in and review the content before you apply for anything. Second, review your public content with the eyes of someone who has no context about your life, your country, or the events you were responding to. Not to delete everything, but to understand what a screening algorithm might flag. Third, if you find content that genuinely concerns you, content that is politically sensitive in ways that are relevant to U.S. foreign policy, or content that involves associations you can explain but might look concerning out of context, consult an immigration attorney before you submit any application. This is not overcaution. This is the difference between being denied and being approved. Fourth, on your visa application, disclose every account you actively use or have used in the past 5 years. Do not omit accounts because you think they're inactive. Do not omit accounts because you posted in a different language. Do not omit accounts because you believe they're private. Fifth, if you are asked for your phone at secondary inspection, remain calm. Do not delete anything in front of an officer. Do not lie about what the phone contains. Ask clearly and politely whether you are free to decline and what the consequences of declining are. Know that you can contact an attorney even at a port of entry, though CBP is not required to wait. The goal is to not create a new problem in a moment of panic when the original situation might have been manageable. As 2026 continues, more details will emerge about how far the social media screening infrastructure extends and how many visa denials and entry refusals can be traced back to posts, likes, and associations that applicants never thought twice about. But one thing is already clear. Knowing this right now does not make you a criminal. It makes you smart. It means you're prepared. It means you're protecting your family from a digital vetting system that moves silently, flags automatically, and acts before you ever get the chance to explain yourself. Share this video with your family, especially anyone who is applying for a U.S. visa, planning to travel to the United States, or waiting for a green card decision. It might save their life one day. Subscribe to Visa Status Radar for more protection. We protect you with real information as the next phase unfolds.